Joining us now is David McGiffert, who was actually Sam's best man, a friend of Sam's when he first came to LA. In fact, they lived together. David, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Hi,
Sam. It's so nice. It's so nice to hear you.
Well, you too. It's been a long time.
Oh, how is that possible?
Yeah, how is it possible? Because we basically live in the same area.
Yeah,
don't we? I mean, yes. And you and I don't know. I just get busy, you know. But there's no excuse. There was absolutely no excuse.
I know. Especially, I remember the last time I saw you in you guys' house up in, I think, Laurel Canyon. You said.
Yeah.
And I remember as I was leaving, I was saying to you specifically, okay, we have got to make sure that we keep in touch with each other. This is silly. And now this is the next time we talk. It's ridiculous.
Yes, because we were married in 1966, was it?
Yes.
Yes, 1966. Anyway, we're going back in history here. Well, it's how did this all come about, by the way, that we're here today?
About 2 weeks ago, I suddenly decided I had to find you guys. I got obsessed with it. I said, this is ridiculous. I have to find Sam and Adrian. I started looking up, trying to figure out where you lived. And I looked at all these crazy internet sites and figured out that you lived in Palm Desert, but I couldn't find a phone number and I didn't want to bother you and just drive up and say hello after all these years. So I started looking up sites that had to do with 1960s disc jockeys. They have a few of them. And
really?
Yes. And I found this site that didn't look like it had a lot of activity, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to put up this question. I said, if anybody has any idea how to get a hold of Sam Riddle, I'm a friend of his and I would really like to get in touch with him again. And I did something I never do. I left an email. I left my email on it. And Mike saw it.
Wow. Yeah, because just like the week before, we had been doing another one a week or two before. That's good. Well, that's cool. Well, I'm glad you did.
Me too.
Wow.
So I wanted to, I wanted to try to figure out, I remember living with you in two different apartments. One was, I think, in Burbank.
Yes.
And one,
yes.
I think, was at the top of Highland Avenue.
That was a great place.
Oh boy, was it ever.
That was like, whoa, you know, there was no other apartment like that in LA area. No place.
It was spectacular. And, you know, you were busy most of the time that we were living there. So I had to run of the place. And so it was really spectacular.
Oh, well, you never told me what happened while I was gone.
Well, you know, a few things. Just a few. You don't want parties or anything, but I remember taking a few dates up there, and it was just a terrific place. I mean, I remember it was out of the way, right? And yet it was the heart of town. You could get to KHJ in no time.
Yeah, right down the street. Yes, exactly. Or it's sort of down the street. Yes.
Okay.
You want me to do my radio voice?
Oh, would you?
Yes. Good afternoon, David McGiffert. It's good to talk to you again. and to you too, Mike. And for us to start chatting about our history. And the history has a lot of
oh my. Now that's a voice you could put on the way I would put on a shirt. It was amazing. You just could do it out of nowhere.
Out of
Isn't
nowhere,
that true?
Yes. Yes, and I used that radio voice on Star Search with Ed McMahon.
Yes.
Willard
Yeah.
Scott, did you say? I never introduced the weatherman. I never. No. Anyway, well, that's fantastic. Yes, we have a lot of stories to tell, a lot of things that happened during those days, and we were good looking, David McGiffert.
We did have a good time, didn't we?
I think we still are good looking, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
So, Mike, put that in the record book. Okay. Yes. Okay.
But I just remember you were so busy all the time. It was, and one of the things I always meant to ask you was, why? What was it? Because it wasn't like an ego thing or anything. You were driven though by something very, very personal to you. I always saw it and wondered about it, but I never asked you. And I always wondered, because you had such a strong intent about what you did. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I had been. Are you talking about like the radio and the TV and all that?
Yes, I am.
I was doing, because I was
Yeah.
doing just about everything.
Yes.
And in those days, it was like I had that since I was in junior high school. You know, I used to drive a tractor and announce radio. I mean, that's how I got my training, so to speak. Because I had to do the daily during the summertime, of course. So I was always announcing, always doing something. And what, Adrienne?
No, you just were driven. You wanted to do.
Oh, it was yeah. She was just reminding me I was driven. Yes, yeah. So you, David, you wanted to ask me what I was doing. What to say again? What was your question?
Well, it was that you were very intent on what you were doing. And I never thought it was because you had a big ego, because you just didn't. It wasn't like that. But you were very intent on doing a good job and getting better all the time, and evolving kind of in your work. It was a very strong trait that I noticed in you and I admired a lot.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yes, that's very true. I started that drive basically in bed as I was going to sleep every single night. I would take my transistor radio to bed with me. My mother would come in like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning and turn off the radio because nobody could sleep in the house at the time. But I don't, you know what? I really don't know. It just started happening.
Isn't that funny?
It wasn't my ego.
No.
I don't remember ever being that serious. I was just having fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that showed. I think that was one of the things that people got from you when you were on the air, because I would notice, you'd be on the air and I'd be out driving around sometimes and I'd be in a traffic jam or something and I'd look over and KHJ would be on. And you could see people were, we're out here on Hollywood Boulevard and there's KSJ, and like the cars going by, you could hear it. It was like echoing around all these cars. I mean, not every car, but a lot of cars.
Sure.
You know how it was. You would hear it. You would hear it going around.
Yeah. Well, KHJ was like such a powerhouse at that time. Also, I mean, it was just like it was like everywhere.
Yeah.
I could have cared less about payment, anything. I just knew that I had made it to Hollywood.
Well, you sure did. Now, I want to ask you your wedding. Adrienne sent me a picture of the two of us walking down the aisle side by side at your wedding.
Yes.
Where was that? I don't even remember where it was.
The Ambassador Hotel.
It was. Okay, good. I was right. That's what I guessed.
Yes, it was in the Embassy Ballroom. Yes, I can't remember if you did the telethon the night before. I think you did. Did you? You remember that?
I'm honestly not sure. But
yeah, it was the Lou Rawls Parade of Stars, which I had done every single year for like 5 years or 6 years, and that was the night that the day that I was getting that I got married, and you were already at the Ambassador Hotel.
Yeah.
And I came from I forgot where I was. It was where the TV show was, and then rushed over to walk down the aisle.
Were you nervous?
Are you there?
Think carefully.
Yes.
Well, good. I wanted to see if you were normal. Because I look like a man in a trance.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was trying to remember if I'd just gotten out of the Army Reserve, because my hair was shorter than I ever thought I wore it. But I can't. It's so funny, Sam, that period when we were around each other, there are so many things that just don't connect, and I just don't understand it.
Well, I think Carol Connors probably is one of the clues.
That could be, because I was dating her sister.
Yeah, Carol. What was her name?
Cheryl Kleinbard.
Cheryl Kleinbard. Yes, and Carol Kleinbard.
Right.
That's however you say it. Yes. That was basically the way we met, I think.
Oh, I see. Because later, by the time you got married, I was dating somebody else, and so I couldn't quite figure out how that had worked. But so you knew? Did you know Carol?
Well, Carol, was a performer. And she made a lot of records. I think I started at KFWB because I had to do the all night show at KFWB, and that was the way they made sure that you were a disc jockey. So because you go for 6 hours or 7 hours, and then go to bed after at 6 a.m. in the morning. But that's how we met because they had a house in the valley. I remember that.
That's right.
And then sometimes we would meet at their house. Sometimes maybe I don't know, but that was basically the way.
That's so interesting. Yes, they were on. I remember their apartment, and they had little. Cheryl kept this cage of little parakeets or something, and she was always playing with these parakeets, and they would talk and stuff.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
She was one of the teddy bears.
I was going to say they were the teddy bears. Yes, the two of them, with Phil Spector produced them, I think.
Exactly. Yes. Wow, I forgot about the teddy bears, but
to know him is to love him.
Oh, I know the song. I played it often. Remember, I was a disc jockey, so every the promotion people just constantly call me, constantly bought my lunch.
What was that like? The guys pushing that stuff.
The promotion guys?
Yes.
Well, I'll start with the first one that really became successful. Sonny and Cher. Sonny was a promotion guy. My first job in LA, coming in from Texas, because I started in Texas, I worked at like 12 radio stations before I got to LA. So I knew a lot of promotion guys because they would travel to all these little towns because every promotion man had a job to do is to get the record played. And that was all they had to do was get a record played. You know, it was payola days, but I never took payola.
Did those guys come from Los Angeles out to the stations in Texas, or were they based in Texas?
No, they were all based in LA or Hollywood. You know, the Capitol Tower, etc. Because that's where all the record labels were basically. So promotion guys would wait for you. Like my very first, one of my first jobs, as I told you, and then also KRLA. KRLA was at the Huntington. It was at the not the Huntington Hartford. The in Pasadena at that hotel, whatever that hotel was called. So all the tourists would come in and stand there in the lobby with a window and stare at you as you were on the air. And all the record guys would come there and stand there while you were on the air as well, because it was open to the public. So it was interesting to look at all the people, the listeners that would get out of their cars and come up and look at you while you're on the air.
I bet.
Yeah.
And the promotion people were waiting to take a beat on you when you got off the air?
Yes, for the most part, yes. Or they would make an appointment with you to buy you lunch.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, no, it's not a racket. I mean, it was all legit. And then on the day, once a week, all the disc jockeys of that particular station, KRLA, KFWB, KHJ, etc., would be buying you lunch as well.
Oh, that's so that's part of what you were doing also when I was in the same apartment with you. You really were busy constantly.
Constantly, yes. So yeah, it was a great experience, and I was, I'll admit it, I was the hotshot disc jockey at that time.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about that.
I started in Cleburne, Texas.
Yes.
As Cleburne, Texas, which was where my stepfather owned a cow. And he made me milk the cow. And I would announce while milking a cow. David, tell me about I know that you were part of the Carol Connors and sister clan.
I wound up after being around you guys. I mean, I remember Carol got a free Cobra from Carol Shelby because she wrote that song, "Hey Little Cobra."
Hey little Cobra, don't you think? Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Well, Carol was deathly afraid of that car because she gotten into an accident a year before she got it. And so Cheryl and I used to be able to take it out on dates.
Okay.
And that's how I got to drive Carol Connors' Cobra.
I can say I loved her, but I didn't romantically love her. I just loved her.
Yeah, she was a good person.
Yes.
And relatively unscathed from the kinds of showbiz traps that girls get into, that young women get into. I thought she held herself above that pretty well.
Yes. Oh, she most definitely did. Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to think of, there was a couple of big important things that she had invited me to, that I had met important people too, political people, Washington, D.C. people, that type of, that she was interested in at one time.
Well, you were busy.
Yes, doing
I mean,
that.
really, that's a hallmark of my memory of you. You were incredibly always busy, and it wasn't. It was always important stuff. It wasn't BS, showbiz stuff. You were working.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because I had a radio and TV show at the same time, and I would do the TV show at 5, in the studio, and then run down the hall for the radio show at 6. And then I actually started it. Well, I don't know. I was at, God, I was like at KHJ, KFWB, KHJ, KRLA.
Bob Wilson.
And Bob Wilson was the program director. Who did you ever meet Bob Wilson as part of your jaunt?
I never did.
No, he was one of the program directors that was one of the important program directors in LA. So
Yeah.
But I was treated very, very well once I got there, because there was a guy by the name of Al Burton, which I'm sure you met. Did you ever meet Al Burton?
I think I did, but it was not it was just a hello.
Yeah, he did all the teenage fairs and all that, which I did all the time. I used to do all those personal appearances.
So you're doing personal appearances, a television program, a nightly at least 3-hour radio broadcast.
Right.
Yeah. So, did you have any spare time?
I never thought about it, but it was very, very nice. Very, very nice to be part of that era of radio and television.
Well, you made a difference.
Thank you. Well, thank you. God, you should be my PR people now.
Well, listen, I was around you. I can't remember specifically, but I remember what I carried with me after I wasn't around you, and that's not BS. You didn't have a big ego, but you weren't pushed around. It wasn't like you were easily pushed around. You were pretty firm on what you wanted to do and how you wanted to do it, in a cooperative way. I carried those things with me. Those are traits I learned from you. And so if I talk nicely about you, it's because I carried good things away from the time I knew you. That's real.
Well, that's really a pleasant, wonderful thing for you to say. I really appreciate.
Good.
Because it's all true. I mean,
yes, it is.
It was like I was learning as well,
Oh my God. That's the one thing I really remember. It was such a rush of opportunity, of new things going on. I don't know how you kept up with it. I barely did, but that was just on a personal level. But how you did it business-wise, I don't know.
Well, you were starting to break too. Remember, you were busy too.
Well, what was I doing? I remember writing an article for a teen magazine at one point.
Oh,
and
that's it?
I remember I stage managed a couple of rock and roll shows. How the hell did that happen?
Now, wait a minute. You also got into films, didn't you?
Oh, yes, but that was later.
Well, you still got into them, and you still did some very important things. Very, very important, Emmy-winning or Academy-winning, whatever. There was a lot of, they were very, very successful films.
True. When you find out how it happened, you'll laugh even harder, because you know how these things happen. I mean, I'm sure that you had things happen that happened out of basically nowhere. They happened out of a chance conversation or something that appealed to you that you thought, well, maybe I'll go and see what that's about, and never understanding until you look back that it set you on the tracks of what you were actually going to do in your life.
Yeah, that's true.
That's also where I carried on my life's education, my people education. There's not a lot of stupid people in movies, and it's the same way with television and radio. There's not dumb people there. These are all people who know mostly what they're doing, or if they don't know what they're doing, they're learning as fast as they can. Did you find that, Sam, that there were a lot of smart people around?
Oh yes, for sure.
And did they help you when you came to LA, for instance? Were there people that helped you?
There were, there was some directors that that was all television, not movies. I think I did a movie, by the way. I did do a movie. I remember. Oh, now I remember the movie I did, and it was an Elvis movie.
Wow.
Yes, I did. Hey, I did an Elvis movie. I just now remembered it. Clam bake! Oh,
Clam bake! Oh, that's great. Oh, I'm going to find it. Pretty good, Sam.
Yeah. Wow. Well, back to those were great days. I mean, we learned so much in the entertainment business. Or at least I did. I know you guys did too. You were part of it. You were part of that era, which was so magical.
It was
so great.
And there was a lot of really good music. P.S.
Yes.
I mean, how lucky were we? Because I mean, I always do listen to music, not as much as I did in the '60s, but I just think that the '60s music had something that you don't hear as often now, which was it had a depth to it and a currentness about what was going on and how people seemed to be evolving. Did that seem that way to you?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm. Well, I can't drive because I'm blind.
Right.
But I can still sort of see, like colors every once in a while.
Oh,
But I
good.
can't drive. So therefore, I have to go out of my way to listen to the radio.
Right.
Because
Right.
I'm not in the car.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, when we're going to the supermarket or something for short drives, then I will listen to it. But yes, to answer your question, yes, the answer is yes about what the music is like today.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not a put down, it's just different.
Mhm.
And somehow the music of the '60s resonated with what I was going through as a person inside. It just meant more to me. And maybe kids that way today feel that way too. They probably do. But I mean, you just don't hear, years where you have a Jimi Hendrix and the Mamas and the Papas and just all these people who were all in Los Angeles, and putting them out there on the airways, and it's just I don't know, it's pretty amazing time.
Well, did you ever want to be a disc jockey?
No,
Okay.
no, it was beyond what I could not do that. That's another thing. I don't know how you could always come up with something, to keep the program going between the songs. No, I did not have that capability at all.
That's an interesting thing you just said. Because I had that same problem when I was a kid. When I told you I was announcing in bed,
Yeah.
and then my mother would yell out from bed things to say, and that's how I learned how to be a disc jockey, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah.
So what would she say?
Um, please play Frank Sinatra. Something like I'd never play the record because I was about to go to sleep. But I would announce Frank Sinatra's record.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Very much so. So this was something that was almost ingrained in you in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Without realizing it. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
My mother.
so-
Oh, my mother did everything. She actually, yeah, and my grandson is now taking dance lessons too. She used to give me dance lessons, singing lessons, piano lessons. She gave me every lesson there was to learn anything.
So then you learn to have a personality that could be in front of an audience.
Yes, exactly, without
Interesting.
realizing it.
How interesting.
But now that you mention it, of course I wanted it to be in the audience. I wanted to be on stage. Yeah.
Interesting. Very
She
interesting.
taught me that from age to practically walking.
Yeah, you were in pretty baby content.
Yeah, I was taking lessons wearing baby clothes. Um,
Whew.
so, but she got what she wanted. Yeah.
Did you ever step back and look at the whole part of what you were a part of, and just not from an ego standpoint, but just of what an amazing time to be doing what you're allowed to do, that you've worked to do in this amazing period of time, with all these different things going on. That's kind of.
Yeah. To briefly answer, yes, I did. It just sort of came with certain things that would happen, of meeting certain people. I remember, like, when I'll never forget meeting the Four Seasons for the first time. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, because I'd always admired them, and then when I finally met them, I realized that they were real people, and they didn't know they helped me advance to LA. It was before I got to LA. It's when I got to LA at the Beverly Hills Hotel. But yes, to answer your question, yes, I sort of I felt it coming throughout my entire life.
This has been great. I mean, I never thought 2 weeks ago that it would wind up like this, actually being able to talk with you guys. That's unbelievable.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
Right. Bye, you guys.
Love you, David.
Bye,
I love
David.
you too.
Bye, David.
All right. Bye.